This is Jane Fendelman, Sunday Preach from the Mountaintop, February 10th, probably Sunday, February 10th, maybe 9th. No, no, we just had Valentine's Day. It's the 15th. Okay, never mind. I had a great Valentine's Day. I forgot that I wanted a heart-shaped box of chocolate. I was hoping I would get one. I put it out there that I would get one, and the way the universe works is so cool that if you put it out there that you want something and then you let go of it, like you're not attached to the outcome, you wind up getting something better, which is exactly what happened, and I completely forgot that's what I wanted. That was one of the things that I wanted, because I wound up shooting an indie film with some dear friends of mine, and then meeting another dear friend for drinks at one of my favorite cool urban, I call it industrial chic, Hanny's, downtown, at a cool restaurant downtown. And then on my way home, stopped at the Rhythm Room to go dancing, and bumped into some super cool guy friends of mine who love to dance. Hi. So it was an awesome day yesterday. Valentine's Day was an awesome day. It was so awesome, and I didn't even get any chocolate candy. And then today, I was working on patience and just being at the cell phone store to fix some things on my cell phone, because I always need to work on patience when I'm there. I want to be cranky, and so I make myself smile, and it always gives me a better experience, because the girls working there aren't always happy working there, girls and gals, guys and gals. And anyway, they had chocolates there, chocolate Hershey Kisses and little heart-shaped candies. So I got what I wanted anyway. Isn't the universe amazing? So today I want to talk about the Snake Prince. This is a cool story. It's from somewhere. The original story is from somewhere, and then I modified the story so that it would be better. I think it's a story. John Bly, somebody used to tell a similar story. I just made it better. I'm just saying, you know how I am. I take things and I improve on them, because that's kind of how women are. So this is especially for women. Moms are the most guilty of making this mistake where they're giving too much and they complain that they're unappreciated, or they're women who are giving too much for their man, and if you do that, you make your man into a baby man. And there's also men that are giving too much to their women and feeling unappreciated. So, but in the story, it's told with the feminine. Well, you'll see. You'll switch it so that it fits for you, obviously. So this is the story of the Snake Prince. And this is on this cool, super cool CD set that I made a few years ago with my dear friend Matthias Schill. And it's beautiful. It's called Stories and Meditations to Soothe Your Heart and Feed Your Soul. And this is one of the stories on it. And it's on my website if you want to download the whole thing. It's a 2 CD set. It's beautiful. The story of the Snake Prince. Once upon a time, there was a king, and he had 2 sons. And the younger of the 2 sons wanted to wed. He was in love and engaged. And the custom in that land was that the eldest must marry first. And so the king sent out a proclamation through the lands inviting all the young maidens to come and wed the prince, the older of the 2 sons. What he didn't mention was that the older son had a curse on him, and he was a giant serpent locked away in the towers of the castle. So all of the maidens lined up. They were so excited. They wanted to marry a prince. They wanted expensive gowns and to live in the castle. They wanted to have children and inherit wealth and riches, and So they lined up. And the custom in that land was that the wedding night is before the wedding day. And so the young maidens, one at a time, were shown into the chambers of the Snake Prince. And here he would come slithering out of the darkness. And he would stand up huge and tall. And he would say, "Take off your shirt." And the young maiden would be terrified. But she would think to herself, well, marriage and wealth, and he is a prince, and I get to live in the castle and the prestige. And so she would take off her shirt, and he would coil around her and eat her. Until one by one, all of the maidens were gone, except one young maiden who lived out in the woods with her father. So the king sent out a messenger. And when the maiden came in from her afternoon chores, her father said, "Get your things together, because tonight at sundown, you're going to the castle. You're going to marry the prince." Now she was a wise maiden, so she checked inside to see if that felt right. She said, "I don't know him. I don't want to marry him." And her father said, "Well, we need the money, so you have to." So she checked inside again. "No, I don't know him. I don't want to marry him, Father." And her father said, "Well, you have to, because I'm your father, and you have to do what I say." So she bowed, and she went into her rooms, and she began to sew a wedding shirt. And after that one was done, she had a feeling to sew another and another, until all of the wedding shirts were sewn. She had sewn 7 wedding shirts. Just at dusk, she put them all on, and the guards came to take her away to the castle. And they showed her up to the rooms of the Snake Prince. And she paused at the door, and she said to the servants, "Bring me a bucket of sweet milk and leave it outside." And they said, "Okay." And in she went, and the door closed behind her, and she stared into the darkness with her back at the door. And here came the Snake Prince slithering out of the darkness. And he stood up huge and tall, 10 feet tall. And he looked down at her, and he was terrifying. And he said, "Take off your shirt." And she said, "All right, I'll take off my shirt. Right after you take off that skin." "What?" He said, "No one's ever asked that of me before." And he was intrigued. And so he began to peel off his skin, and it was a new skin, so he's shrieking in pain. And he gets that skin off. And so she took off the shirt, and he saw under it the next shirt. And he said, "Take off that shirt." And even though she was terrified, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She said, "All right, I'll take off this shirt. Right after you take off that skin." "What? No one has ever asked this much of me before." And he was intrigued and taken by her strength and sense of self. And so he peeled off the next skin, and it was an even newer skin. And so he's shrieking even louder in pain. And they went like that, back and forth, until she was down to her last shirt. And he said, "Take off that shirt." And she said, knowing that it was her last shirt, "All right, I'll take off this shirt." right after you take off that skin. And he said, what? No one ever in my life has ever asked that much of me before. And he was already invested because of all the pain he'd gone through for her, the sacrifice he'd made for her, the strength in her he saw at facing his terrible self. And so he began to peel off what turned out to be his last skin, and he's shrieking in pain. And when he got that skin off, he collapsed to the floor, a mass of white pulp. And the maiden reached outside the door and brought in the bucket of sweet milk and lifted his body into the sweet milk and began bathing him in the sweet milk. And as she did, a tear of compassion fell from her eye and hit his body. And when it did, the spell was broken and the curse was lifted. And he was transformed into his former self, the beautiful prince. And they loved each other already because of all they'd gone through for one another, the sacrifice, the fears they'd faced for one another. They already loved each other. They fell into each other's arms. They wed and lived together forever in bliss. Now, what does this story mean? It means many things on so many levels. In fact, it'll speak to you in your dreams. But if you're feeling taken for granted, it's because you're giving too much. And one of the reasons why it's so hard for women, especially mothers, to stand at the door and wait and watch and just be there while the people they love are peeling off their skin, the reason why it's so hard for you to ask something of someone is because they have to go through pain to step into their true power, their true self. And you want to rescue them from that pain, and that doesn't do them any good. In fact, in Kabbalah, there's a thing called bread of shame, and it means that when you give somebody something that they haven't earned, it's like giving them moldy bread. It'll make them sick. They have to earn it. So that's the story of the Snake Prince. And I hope you had a wonderful Valentine's Day, because if you don't have a sweetie, holy shit, you better be in love with your friends or your family or both. If you don't have a beloved, you better practice being in love with yourself and the people around you. And if you have somebody, a sweetie, or people around you, and you feel like you're giving more than them, go back and listen to the story of the Snake Prince again.